That timed out almost perfectly. Almost, but not quite. This is a best of 3 for the IEM Cologne qualifiers, ladies and gentlemen. I do encourage you, if you're hanging out in chat and you're rooting for either of these players, you type !vote Vortex or !vote Joxy to show them some love. But as we get into the match, I'm Rifkin, today joined by Zombie Grub, and spawning here in the lower left corner of Yansu, it is our Mouse Sports player, the Yellow Zerg, known as Vortex. You can find him on Twitter at MouseVortex.
And in the upper right, as the Blue Terran, it is my Insanity's Jochi.
You find this fine young gentleman on Twitter, sorry for the late swivel, at MYEdge. Actually, I didn't have that copy paste ready. So it's kind of an interesting thing to see here. It really sucks. Like, you look at the brackets today, and honestly, if you're a fan of anyone in Europe, all of your favorites are playing today, and it sucks that not everyone can win. Only top 3 today from qualify, and or top 3 from today can qualify. If I could just wake up and start speaking some English here. It is double elimination though, guys, so if Vortex or Joxy falls here in this early round, they're not out of it yet. They can claw their ways up from the loser's bracket, but that's a lot easier said than done, because again, they're going to have to fight against really good players. There's no one in this tournament that I would classify as like a B-lister by any means.
No, I agree with that statement. It's nothing but high-name Europeans, pretty much. Is everyone in this tournament also in the WCS Europe? They gotta be, right?
You know what, I wouldn't be surprised, just going off of the names, with the exception of maybe Kane, because I think he tried out for WCSNA, or America, I mean.
Yeah, I think, Kane must be the only one.
Yeah, I mean, like, you have 4GG versus Hearthstone, Titan versus Happy. I'm not going to read out every single name, but there's a lot of good matchups going on, and we did get one of the better ones, in my opinion. Now, it is worth noting, guys, while Vortex is an incredibly good player, and we've seen him in multiple cups in the past, we can't ignore the fact that Joxy seriously has like the best ladder record on like Europe right now, to the point where he's taken almost no losses on a regular basis. That's a little bit scary to consider, but not that ladder really affects tournament play. Players like Vortex kind of they bring out their A game, their secret weapons, or what have you, in these sort of matchups. Now, I don't know if Vortex has paid a lot of attention to what goes on versus Joxy. But Joxy is a really skilled player, and I could talk for days about this and that. But one thing I have noticed in recent times casting him, the few times he has lost, it's been against players like Bly and Tefel, who have hit him with either early Roach all-ins, or Roach pressure, or Roach Hydra. So I think Joxy's forte is definitely going to be that Biomine versus Widow or Banelings and Mutalisk. If that ends up being what Vortex does, it might not work out for him. But if he's been studying what's going on, if he's seen the odd go for StarCraft Cup or what have you, he may know that Joxy does in fact have a weakness, that he is not invincible.
We'll have to see how Vortex does play it out. Like I said, I haven't really seen a whole lot of him lately. More like middle 2013, I'd say, is when he was making like a really big name for himself. Of course, I think his breakout performance was 2012 actually, but still, it's like, does he even go for Roach Hydra, like, at all? There are some Zergs that just don't do it.
That's the thing, like, I've seen Vortex maybe do it like once or twice, but again, he's a player who's a little bit more reserved, and I don't get to see him nearly as much as players like Joxy who compete in like the often weekly cups. So I honestly can't speak to whether he's accustomed to it or not. It's kind of like talking about a meching player versus a bio player. Like, if you've seen them do it a lot, it's a pretty good guess on what they're willing to do, but we'll see. Joxy, of course, does like playing his bio. He's not at all immune to playing mech. I've seen him try it out like once, though, if ever, and it's pretty much bio all the way. So, at the very least, we'll know what he's be going for here.
Yeah. That's most Korean Terrans, it seems. Of course, he's living in Europe right now, but he's still a Korean Terran at heart. Actually, how long has he been living in Europe? Like,
him and Stardust have been there for like a year or something. Joxy's been there for like half that duration, I think. So
yeah, I was gonna guess like 6 months, maybe. So
this is by the way, this is just a regular Hellion Banshee opener, nothing crazy. But the place he's building his starport is something I do find a little bit odd. This is supposed to be like the anti-Overlord placement, I think. You know, when the Overlord comes towards the main and tries to slowly float over, but still, that one from the natural may just float over and see it anyways.
Yeah, that would be the problem. It's just usually in ZVT they only send that one Overlord in, right? Because you really don't have to check for a whole lot, as opposed to ZVP, where like they're always trying to hide whatever tech they're going. That's probably the Council or the Robo, so you always want to send the both of them in. But I mean,
I just realized we're chalking this up as normal, right? Like, because it is a normal Terran opener. But this is like the first time I think I've ever cast Joxy where he hasn't gotten a Reaper at some point.
Oh yeah.
He is like Mr. 888. He's Mr. I always scout with a Reaper. It is a bit odd to see him opening kind of blindly like this, but as we see, Roaches coming out from Vortex will be able to hold this early aggression against the Hellions at the very least, but the Banshees are a whole nother question.
Yeah. Vortex will need to identify this, and oh no, that's not good. Hopefully that gets fixed. But yeah, and actually place down a Spore Crawler. You know, at least, of course, in his actual mineral line, so maybe even one of the fronts, because a Cloaked Banshee along with Hellions can take down a Queen. Even with the Roaches here, to be honest, if he gets, you know, 2 Banshees, which he is, if you get Cloaked, you always get 2 or more, then you can take down Queens, and especially this hatchery, because this hatchery it's so hard to get Queens down there. The creep is almost connected, almost, but even then, I guess he killed the
connecting tumors.
Alive, yeah. So that's not actually going to happen. That's really important because you can target that down.
Ooh.
But we do have an attack from Vortex. A lot of Roaches, some Banelings as
Roach
well.
Bane through, yeah. This could be problematic. The Banshee's going to have to focus down the Banelings if he really wants to hold this. The Roaches are a whole nother question entirely, but the Banshees, oh, they're not. What are the Hellions doing? They're attacking the rocks! Alright, this is really problematic for Joxy. He doesn't have that secondary wall off. Lots of Hellions are here, but what are Hellions going to do versus Roaches? He'll eventually clean this up with the Banshees, but certainly not before he takes some losses. He needs to get that wall up ASAP, and there we go, immediately throws down the depots. Because it's the reinforcements that make this so scary. Roaches in the main are going to get a couple more SCV kills for sure, but Hellions are dealing with the Lynx not too poorly.
This isn't so bad. I mean, he's got to pull the SCVs from the main. I'm not surprised why he's not, because obviously, like, you know, Roaches really aren't that fast right now.
He's choosing to fight with them instead. Again, a bit of an odd choice, but gets the job done one way or another. Vortex definitely gutting Joxy Rollo. 27 workers down. Not a good position to be in, but as we look at the workers killed, or sorry, the worker count, it's kind of evened up. You'd expect Vortex to have this massive lead, but when you go for that third hatchery like this, and you go for that Roach Bane bust, you have to give up workers. You have to start producing other things. So now Vortex says, you know what? I did so much damage with that attack. I can start. Well, hold on. He's actually going for round number 2, and the Hellions are moving out at just the wrong time. The Banshees left the base, and oh god, a huge bust is going to go off once more. He spreads. He spreads. He's going to minimize losses here, but he's still going to take those losses, and it's going to hurt. Hellions should be able to start cleaning this up, and looks like Lings, they're going to get fried. Joxy, like I said, this is definitely a bit of an Achilles heel for him to deal with, as he does go for hyper-aggression, or not hyper-aggression, but more aggressive type units with Hellions that don't stand up to this so well. But finally, the Banshees get some breathing room. They start moving across the map. There is no follow-up of continued aggression from Vortex, because he did start making workers after that. And you look at the resources lost, guys, it's 10 minerals difference between the two of them. So Joxy did not die from that attack, but he definitely didn't come out too good from it. Down to 20 workers right now.
Yeah, that last attack really, really helped. You know, 45 workers killed as opposed to, I think it was like 28 before it. So he's going to try and do some return damage, though, and it's pretty good. The Queens are going to go down. 3 Banshees. Cloak, no Overseer, can do a lot of damage, and he will take down that Spore Crawler. The only Spore Crawler that's really there to, you know, actually take on the Banshees. Otherwise, you know, he can skirt around Spore Crawlers that are in the mineral line. No problem.
Hole in the wall. These Hellions can go right towards the natural. They will. Spore Crawler goes down as well as Vortex. Oh man, he wasn't ready for the counterattack. Not purely and entirely. He's still going to hold this off, and he's not going to lose the game right here. But the damage done was pretty well handled here.
Well, he might lose the third. That would be big.
Oh god, 4 Banshees can focus on the Spore Crawlers like nothing, but instead go for the drone line instead. Not a bad choice. I can still probably get
cleaned up.
I think you can still focus on the Spore Crawlers before they die.
Yep, definitely. The Queens are there. There's 2 Queens, actually 3 Queens, but that's actually all of his Queens. You know, there's not any that are injecting at home. So, and even then, I'm not sure that's going to be enough against 4. If
it's
with
not.
4 Banshees,
really
yeah,
not.
you can just take down the hatchery and leave.
Obviously can't quite cloak. Overseer is here, but still going to focus down on the Queens. Targets the high energy one. Goes down immediately. 1 Banshee's lost, but still there's more than enough left here. 2 Banshees is no problem for 1 Queen to deal with. And Vortex in a bit of trouble here. Now 3rd base about to fall. Another Queen does pop just in time to kill one of these Banshees. Unless he pulls it back with 5 health.
And he'll get that hatchery. So very, very nice. Now Vortex did make a lot of Roaches during this, realizing that I'm a bit of trouble. So I need to start returning the aggression, not only just, you know, to return some damage,
but all the Banshees
but also
are still alive. 5 Banshees
to buy
in
some
total.
time.
I just don't see Roaches breaking this. Not with 5 Banshees waiting. This is not looking too good for Vortex. That bust was a big surprise, and Joxy certainly wasn't prepared for it, but I gotta give him credit, man. Our Terran player held quite strongly behind this.
Well, the Banshees was really a good thing. You know, you don't get them because you know what's coming. You got to do that before you even know, right? And it just happened that Banshees are actually
worked
very
out.
effective in
Yeah.
actually cleaning up. Like if you don't have the Banshees, you literally cannot clean up that attack sometimes. So, you know, it was really important that he cleaned it up at all. You know, didn't lose his entire mineral line, and that the counter pressure was really, you know, it was there, and it was there, like really, really powerful.
So it is worth noting too, guys, Vortex is not at all out of this game. Reclaiming his third. He's trying to use the roaches to keep the Banshees from pushing across the map. If the pressure's over here, then they're not poking around the mineral line, which is better for him. And he might even cause some damage with this if he tries to bust through this wall one more time. Decides to back off a little bit here. Gonna lose the roaches though. Don't know that I like him pulling back, because these are all they're basically forfeit anyways. Like,
I don't know. I mean, you know, the reason that the supplies don't look that different is because roaches are so inflating. You know,
That's a
to your
good point.
supply.
yeah. Banshees
So, three
had
Banshees?
6. Never repaired up those 2 low ones. 14 kills on the one that remains with 5 health, but still, third base has been secured from Joxy. And I told you, like, he's not at all immune to playing mech, and it looks to be what he's gone for here. I mean, when you're ahead, I guess you might as well press the issue, get some Blue Flame, mix in some Thors. I'm surprised we don't see tanks, though.
Well, I think his thought is that, you know, I have so many Banshees that he's probably going to go up to Mutalisk to try and deal with them, as opposed to getting those Hydralisks. So that's why he's getting the Thors. And unfortunately, they aren't going to be as useful as the tanks, because it is going to be Roach Hydra from Vortex.
Yeah, and that's what gets a bit scary. I mean, the Banshee DPS is going to be fantastic for helping deal with that. And the Hellions will connect to the Hydras, no problem. But everything has to get through the Roaches first, which is what's a lot easier said than done. Roaches are quite good at just being those meat shields that they're intended for.
Yeah. Well, it does break down the rocks, and he's getting those tanks finally, as well as more production. His upgrades are fantastic, by the way. 2-2. He had got those double armories like a long time ago, why that attack was actually happening. Well, Vortex, you know, he specifically didn't get upgrades to do that attack.
Well, Evolution Chamber on the way. Really curious if he's going to try and use some fungal growths, which wouldn't be too ineffective versus the Banshees, but this will most likely be for Swarm Hosts, if I had to take a random guess here. Especially once you recognize that it is, in fact, full-on Meg. He actually doesn't know... Well, actually, he's seen the double armory, so maybe he has an idea.
Yeah, that's pretty telling. He did get a Viking, as we can see. It's chasing around an Overlord, but they do have speed, so he might get this one. Not even. Transfused.
It's already got 2 lives on it, though. I mean, typically this Viking's expected to get 2, maybe 3 kills, and it's usually picked off by Mutalisks, but because Mutalisks aren't in this game, that's not going to happen. One really scary thing to consider, though, guys, is when you do go Roach Hydra, it's a very strong composition that's very, very difficult to break for a Terran player, but it's immobile to an extent. Like, it's not nearly as quick to respond, and Hellion Run-Bys, drops, are 2 things that are very, very difficult to deal with, and we do have a Hellion Run-By set up here towards the south, so as we see, even with the creep speed bonus, Hydras will not get back to that third base in time. Some drones will certainly die.
Oh, almost lined him up right
know which
there.
way to take him. Blue Flame finishes
Oh,
just
the
as
Blue
this attack
Flame.
kicks in. And
Not too.
yeah, Vortex handled that pretty well. That could have gone much worse, of course. Blue Flame is a scary thing to see, though, because now Vortex, if he didn't have a good suspicion from the double armories before, he knows 100% this is going to be mech now. And what we see is a lot of Hellbats and a lot of Hellions, both the units which are great. If they connect to the Hydras, those Hydras are going to die. But, again, he's got to get through that Roach sort of like meat shield first.
Yeah. Joshi should be pushing out soon. You know, definitely when he's max. He has 2-2 upgrades, which is something you also usually wait for. Getting a bunch of orbital commands, because he can go ahead and... You know, you're not really starved of minerals, usually. Especially when you get to 4 bases, it's usually gas for a mech player, so you do see a lot of orbitals go down. But it should be moving out soon. I mean, he doesn't want to give Vortex enough time that he does get those Vipers out, and that's actually what Vortex has, you know, gone straight up to, because that is something that can, you know, get him back into this game.
Yeah, Blinding Clouds or Abducts or what have you, but I do want to point out, you know, this is a really strong ground army. Let's not forget, there's 7 freaking Banshees in the sky with Cloak. This is not at all a typical mech composition. I mean, the ground is, yeah, but you rarely ever see more than 3 Banshees in a game versus a Zerg player, much less, like, how many died already? The additional 2? So almost 10 Banshees in total so far this game. Siege tanks are going to have to leapfrog forward a little bit if they want to be super safe. I love the SCVs pulled with this for repairs, by the way. It's going to be really nice to have on top of the tanks, but trying to figure a good angle to engage this. Vortex, unfortunately, just won't find one. He's going to just evacuate the base, but the drones run through Blue Flame Hellions, and that is certainly not going to work. Siege tanks on the ridge are going to guard quite nicely, and backing up out of this is Vortex, knowing that he cannot take this fight without those Vipers. Where are those Vipers? They're currently consuming at the natural. Oh god, this is not going to be easy even with the Vipers, because what do? You abduct the Thors maybe, but there's still Hellbats and tanks. Throw in some Blinding Clouds maybe on top of them. They're not spread out in the slightest. Hellbats and Banshees can still fire through this. They'll fight through the army, and it looks like the tanks are going to be somewhat irrelevant. He'll still take the fight without the tanks. The Banshee DPS is so good!
Vortex GG's. Good game.